if you're not profit first, all of those things are going to fall by the wayside. And that short-term win that client's going to get of that cheap installation or that cheap service call or whatever it is, isn't going to be long-term viable. And so they're going to lose in the end anyways.
Yep.
And certainly I know when I shut my business down, I didn't shut it down in a way that was a great thing. I had to shut it down under duress.
Mm-hmm.
And now luckily, I rolled into a really good opportunity in real estate and mortgages and all these other things that was able to get me out of the dip. But, man, I loved building stuff and to be able to do that again would be wonderful, but it's just not my path at this point.
Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of Vintage Visionaries. I'm your host, Michael Hamoen, and today we have my brother, Steve Hamoen, who's going to be talking with us today about money, mindset, and mentoring, and how that looks in the podcasting space and business space.
Hey, Mike.
Welcome, Steve.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I'm so excited to be your first guest on your show. I think Vintage Visionaries speaks to not only a great topic, but I think it really speaks to you. Even though you're my younger brother, you have all of these aspects that have a little bit of an older person inside of you. And, in the sense that you like the old school, you like the good heavy handshake. And so I think really the topic, I think, is a great focus.
Well, that's one of those things when you were mentioning about being in a podcasting space, it kind of really spoke to me as being more driven about the interactions between the individual and how to really explore each other in a more human aspect rather than just, email marketing campaigns, going to random events and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed how this perspective is really going to be playing out. And I'm certainly looking forward to reaching into people's perspectives, their business models and such.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. As somebody who's interviewed quite a few people on my podcast, one thing I found is it builds great relationships. And number one, and then number two, I think you walk away learning something, whether you learn something about that individual or whether you learn something about yourself. I think it's something that is a great way. And then hopefully the people who are listening get that opportunity to do the same thing.
And that's kind of really the goal that we want to kind of do, and we want to extrapolate. And that's why I really spend a lot of time kind of honing out the name and putting vintage and visionaries kind of together and marrying that difference between that old handshake, that handshake deal and really your word was your bond, and then to visionary, which is the incorporation of technology into that space. And I think that's one of those things that, AI is moving at a lightning quick speed. And it's difficult to keep up with, but even if you're using it just a little bit, is allowing you to be a little bit more organized, a little bit more thorough, develop those relationships a little bit deeper with your customers, clients and friends, family sometimes.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, one of the things that I find interesting is we both kind of went through the same journey to kind of get to where we are today. I did it a little bit earlier, but that's probably because I'm just, a few years older. And so kind of doing it almost at the same age, just at a different time period. And so talk a little bit about your journey as to where were you before and why are you doing the things that you're doing now?
Well, it was interesting because, like you said, we had the similar journey. We both worked with our father in the mechanical HVAC space, and who was, again, he was a vintage visionary. He had that old school business, and he really worked with technology and put that all together. But the major factor that we didn't learn correctly was to be profit driven, and sometimes be a little bit more egocentric in a positive way, which means in order to be able to take care of your clients that you have and foster new clients, is you have to drive profit first. And
Absolutely.
it was a big learning curve, and we both went through it, and it was massive.
It was
Absolutely
so
massive.
seductive to be in that space. You're working in some of the largest houses in Canada. You're working on some of the coolest projects in Canada, and you're just doing some of the most interesting things. I remember, building out systems that had just never been built before. And that's super exciting. But then at the end of the day, and there's big numbers, like just,
Massive.
millions of dollars, right? But at the end of the day, one small little change in a manufacturing design, one small little shift in a market pricing, any of these things that can happen, a labor shift, anything that happens with a large project that goes on for a long period of time, if it's not being budgeted correctly for profit, you're going to fail as a business. And I know personally that's, what happened with us is the same thing that happened with you is you have these shifts, and literally it's that almost 10-year shift that happened,
Yep.
and you're running into the same thing that I ran in 10 years later.
Well, and it was also a culture of, again, something that we learned, and I think it was by having the wrong mentor. Was we were taught that, like, is giving a deal is good for the customer, which is good for you,
Mm,
and that's not entirely true. I mean, it can be, but it can put you into a referral network that just keeps you poor. And it doesn't allow you to grow, and it doesn't allow you to, again, be responsible to your business, and more importantly, to your customers.
absolutely. And I think a profit first model, what it does is actually it's really a customer first model,
Mhm.
because if you're profit first, it means you're going to be there tomorrow.
Yep.
If you're profit first, it means you're going to be able to reward your employees and
Mhm.
create retention. If you're profit first, it means you're going to be able to pay your suppliers and pay the CRA and do all the things that you need to do.
Mhm.
If you're not profit first, all of those things are going to fall by the wayside. And that short term win that client's going to get of that cheap installation or that cheap service call or whatever it is isn't going to be long term viable. And so
Right.
they're going to lose in the end anyways.
Yep.
And certainly I know when I shut my business down, I didn't shut it down in a way that was a great thing. I had to shut it down under duress.
Mhm.
And now, luckily, I rolled into a really good opportunity in real estate and mortgages and all these other things that was able to get me out of the dip. But man, I loved building stuff, and to be able to do that again would be wonderful. But it's just not my path at this point.
Well, I thought the same thing, and with the building of the stuff and putting something together, where when you're done, and you can see it, it's no longer, it's from vision to reality, like a tactile reality,
Mm,
and switching over to this type of environment is, I'm building something different. And I
mm.
and I think that becomes really positive. And for sure, I mean, knowing all the people who are still in that space, it does afford me that ability to be like, hey, like, this is the right place to go, the right people who did it. They were early adopters of technology, they were early adopters of systems and processors that they put in place with the right mentorship, that were able to be successful and be more congruent in where they wanted to go,
Mm.
and but taking those same types of building styles and just treating as a brick by brick type of approach, from the construction industry into the personal space and the tech space. I think through this, you're just going to see something totally different. There's a huge shift happening right now with how people are dealing with their clients, especially post pandemic. Is people are starting to be more one on one, a closer environment, a tighter community, and the networking isn't about email blasts anymore. Networking is about having those one-on-ones and really making sure that you're the tip of a spear for your community, meeting a tip of another spear, and those two triangles meet. There's so much room for growth.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think, the idea of being able to build, first of all, to hit that first point, it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be brick and mortar.
Yep.
And, if it is brick and mortar, I think what we're seeing is a lot more vertical integration to
Mhm.
solve these kind of problems.
Mhm.
I was talking with a really good guy on a podcast that we recorded where, um, they've taken the whole food chain inside of construction and integrated into the business. We've
Right.
seen this with a lot of, large scale, high rise residential. The plumber, the electrician, everybody works for the company, and
Mhm.
the company owns the building. And that's a very different model than having all these sub trades with all these different visions that are out there that aren't in alignment. And so
Mhm.
I think, in that space it's going to go through a lot of different things. But moving to your second point, where it doesn't have to be a brick by brick, it can be a digital brick by brick
Right.
build, it can be a corporate build, it can be a lot of different things. So that desire to build doesn't have to be inherently found in the construction space. It can be found in a lot of different things. I've had so much joy building out our mortgage business. I work with absolutely amazing people, different lenders that are unbelievable, and my staff that I work with are just rock stars. Hopefully, way better than I am. And so, it's just been an unbelievable situation. And I think
Yep.
the idea is that building can be found in so many different things. And
Mhm.
one of those things that help you figure that out is networking.
Yep.
And understanding that if you're building something, it needs to be viable. And the way to get out of that trap that I think you and I might have fallen into back in the day is that the more people you have in your network, the more opportunities you're going to have. And then you
Absolutely.
can selectively choose the opportunities that you want to work with. And then the ones that maybe aren't going to be the right fit for you or for them are the ones that you can pass on.
Right. And there's all
So
there, of course, there's that referring to, because even though, if again going back to that tip of the spear type of analogy, is if I'm the tip and they're the tip and we don't match, there's nothing to say that there's someone in my community and someone in their community that would be a perfect link. And then you eventually you just become married to this massive, constantly evolving space with different individuals with different experiences, and you find some real nuggets of just beautiful information and amazing stories of people who've just come from crazy places and have wild ideas and where they want to grow, and just such a learning opportunity in it, and especially in that one-on-one environment like this type of
yeah,
atmosphere. I think
yeah.
there's a lot to be taken away from that.
Oh, I totally think so. And it was one of the things that, I was with when I left the construction space, I went into the real estate space,
Oh,
and I was in one brokerage, and it is a great brand, and a lot of really great people in that franchise. However, when I switched to the franchise that I'm with Keller Williams, the one thing that I learned is so much about playing together well in the eco space with
oh,
your competition.
oh,
And because if you look at competition as being healthy, it's a beautiful thing. That person who's beside you, who's in the space, who, is looking to get a deal, and you're looking to get a deal. You realize two things. Number one, the market is huge.
oh,
You're not going to fight with each other on every single deal. You might, see each other on, one or two or three, and
oh.
there's nothing wrong with that. It
Yep.
keeps it healthy. Um, but the thing is what I learned is that if you're both vying to get better and you're doing that together, everybody wins. Your clients win, your business models win, and everybody wins, because the professionals will find themselves to come to the top of the list, whereas the unprofessionals or the part-times or the people who are really not in it really for the market, they're just in it for themselves,
Oh,
they'll find themselves scraping the bottom. And so I think that idea of, you brought up a really good point about that, is that when you work together in collaboration, not in
oh.
collusion, but in collaboration,
Yep.
in the sense that, look, we're all here to win, but let's all win together. And there's that I think is the best model. And that's a huge model that comes out of Keller Williams,
Oh,
is that it's not adversarial in the space,
right.
because the person that we're all working for is the client,
Yep.
and they are the one who needs to win.
That's a really interesting take on it. I know you just came back from a huge experience down in Vegas. How was that for? Speaking of Keller Williams, how was that for you?
The thing is when you're sitting in a room and there's 18,000 people, and they're all real estate agents, and they're
Oh,
all collaborating. They're all sharing best practices. They're all saying, here's what my lead magnet looks like. Here's what I do with my buyer's presentation. Here's what I do with my listing presentation. Here's how I create an ecosystem with my clients. Here's my touch points that I use. Everybody's got an open book, and they're all sharing. And
oh,
a lot of them are in the same market space. Like, you'll run into, if down in, say, Tucson, there's a really great fellow, Chase, down in Tucson, Arizona, and they got a really good brand down there. And he's sharing and collaborating with everybody. Doesn't matter who it is. And here's my in fact, he flew up to Canada. It was about 3 months ago. He flew up to Canada to show his model for success,
wow.
for no benefit to him. He just wanted to share and just let people, get better, because we all get better. Because I'm sure he learned some stuff from the people here.
Oh,
And I think that was a great experience. So that just taught me so much about how to run a business.
that's fantastic. And again, it goes back to that healthy competition breeds beautiful collaboration.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely. And I think, yeah, I definitely agree with that 100%. I think there's something to be said about, look, I love healthy competition, but I
oh,
really love domination, and
oh,
and that's just having a really good winning mindset. And
yep.
that comes from Grant Cardone. Like, he says, I'm not here to compete, I'm here to dominate.
Yep.
And I do believe in that as well. I mean, that happens in the jiu-jitsu tournaments as well. I'll go there, and I'm not there to compete, I'm there to win.
Yep.
I'm not there just to show up. I'm not there to just, like, be another person. I want to be there. I want to be on the podium. I want to be in the gold position.
Oh,
I'm there to win. But the second that the tournament's over, and the second that I'm at the top, I'm going to shake the hands of everybody and say thank you very much for
yep.
being there, because I mean, this is a journey we're all going on together.
Well, that
Even if
was
I'm in the second position, but that doesn't happen
that was kind of like the
often.
rugby experience when we were both playing for Burlington Centaurs. Was just you go out to crush it and win it, and afterwards both teams they're just hanging out talking about the game, how to be better. But I mean, you
Absolutely.
did go out to win. You
Yeah.
absolutely went out to win.
I think there's a saying that one of my buddies had tattooed on him, and it said, "Those who shed blood with me, I shall call brother." And I think there's something to be said a lot about that.
Yep.
Warriors do that all the time. When you look at the UFC, they shake hands afterwards, typically, if they're a good warrior, and they're respectful with the other person, and they understand that this is a battle of media, as well as this is a battle of skill in the mat or
Yep.
in the octagon. So I think that is something that's huge. Now, one of the things also that I think is we've talked about actually two things right now that we just hit rolling into the next topic is mentors.
Yep.
Is I think, the idea that we looked back in the past, and certainly we had, with our dad, we had one of the best engineers, I think, on the planet. I think
Probably. Yep.
he was so smart when it came to technology. He was so smart when it came to just engineering design pools. I mean, making a pool inside of a glass bubble and not having it condensate is just, I mean, that's a feat of art. And so I
Absolutely.
give him a lot of credit around that. The challenge, I agree with you, was around the business side. And one of the fortunate things that I've had is in the past, few years, not only with Michelle Mason, where it came to starting my stuff in real estate, then it came to everybody in the Keller Williams community,
Mhm.
really pushing me forward on thinking about how to build a sustainable business with
Mhm.
roles and responsibilities and scalability. And I think that was really important. And then with Grant Cardone, with all the things he does from sales and from marketing and, really, pushing on my brain on the idea of the power of marketing.
Mhm.
And I think that was the next element of an evolution. And I think mentors are so extremely important to have.
Yeah, I mean, like you definitely want to make sure you're in a situation where you're not at the top of the pile. I mean, a lot of people, especially again coming from the HVAC industry, because it was, almost 25 years of my life, coming from that space, is everybody wants to be at the top. But the problem is when you're at the top, there's no more ladder, there's no more guidance, and a lot of people kind of get stuck into just that's it, and they're at the ceiling and they feel like they're at the top, but they don't understand that there's so much more. There's different ways to grow, different avenues to grow, different businesses, different models, different structures,
Well,
different
or
exposures.
or the idea is that you're in your little puddle
Mhm.
and there's a big old fat lake that's just right around,
Yeah.
over there, and you think you're at the top,
Mhm.
but you're just such a speck in a puddle.
Yep.
And that could be in the size of your business, that could be in your mindset,
Yep.
that could be in your bank account. I mean, it could be in many different things. I mean, I went down to one of the Grant Cardone events, and I thought I was beast mode with my business, and I was doing pretty well, and we're growing in Canada.
Mhm.
And then, I started looking at numbers with some of the people who are down there, and this is not a looking over the fence and saying, "Gee, I wish I want that." It
Mhm.
was more looking at it saying, "Man, I think I can get there,"
Mhm.
because having a conversation with them, they showed me some of their models that allowed me to get there. So by me being able to subordinate my ego and check that at the door, and saying that, this is one of the things that I say is really, really important, is that if asking for help is not giving up.
No.
Asking for help is saying you are so committed to your goals that you're willing to check your ego at the door so you can ask somebody to help you get there.
Mhm.
And so you have the conviction and you have the commitment that you're willing to set aside all those things that make you feel special and I know everything and all these things, and put those things aside and ask for help because you're committed. And I
Yep.
think that's extremely important for people to know. And it doesn't matter whether it's with alcoholism, whether it's with relationships, whether it's with business.
Mhm.
Asking for help is not giving up.
Right.
Asking for help is being committed to your goal.
Mhm.
And that's where the mentor coming in is so extremely important, because that mentor is going to allow you to keep yourself in check. And whether it's a mentor from afar or whether it's a mentor that you see on a daily basis,
Yep.
those things are definitely going to keep you in check.
Well, I always like that analogy that you use where like the grass is greener on the other side. A lot of people just forget like sometimes you just need to water your own, and it's the same grass, same space, and sometimes you
Mm.
just need to borrow your neighbor's water, which is your mentor, right? Like I'm out of water, can I just borrow some water? Can you help me borrow? I just need to borrow a little bit of water, and that's it. You both got beautiful lawns, and then you can
I
start
like
helping
that.
other neighbors with that. So.
I
And I
love
think
that.
that's really really important. Just get out there and water it. Just get out there and do the work. Do the work.
That's
Have
right.
those conversations.
That's right. That's right. I love it. Now, when you look at the idea of, you've got profit first model. You're thinking about building a business that's sustainable. You've got the right networking, having the right marketing, and the inertia that's happening, and you've got the right mentor keeping you in check so that you're on point for where your goals are.
Mhm.
And then the next thing is saying sometimes what we need to do is have a little bit of an accelerant, and that accelerant is technology.
Absolutely.
And I think technology, anybody who doesn't see technology in their business right now is probably missing an opportunity.
Mhm.
Now, some people maybe don't want that opportunity, but if you are looking to grow and scale, the idea of having technology, I think, is really important. I know the one that you're really dialed in is to the idea of having technology for podcasting.
Absolutely. Like the way the podcast AI actually helped me go through the process. Again, coming from the HVAC space, I'm a hardware guy. I don't mind building computers as a hobby, but when it comes to software, I'm not very big on it. So just the way they were able to kind of just walk me through the steps, setting up the feeds, setting up the pages, really mentoring me into the space of how to talk to people, how to engage with them, what type of things to look for. Also, just taking care of the whole back end. I mean, I don't have to do any of the processing really. It's a one click environment, which allows me to really go back to focusing on my business, my brand, my growth, my experiences, getting out there and having more time with my mentors with this big polar shift I'm going through, which is I am so excited to be doing. And just like they've become not just someone that I use, but somebody that I'm becoming way more integral with on a daily basis almost.